Novak had that at least one more time. That was not Tuerck. FD judges are still biased, only give one more times when they want their favorite to have another chance. Hard to really enjoy FD when the judges get things wrong. James won round one, but drama is better, so one more time, when it's clear as day to see that first out of zone from Aasbo made James win. Judges were so strict all day until that call. I mean, they're blah, 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 blah. So YouTube tag, I'll start here, and in today's video, we're gonna be doing a little bit of analysis on a couple of runs from Bowling Drift Long Beach, which had transpired pretty much this past weekend. Now, with FD or competition in general, since it's a judge sport, we all can form our own opinions on how the run should be judged based on the criteria that's given to us. And you know, it seems these days that a lot of people, they prefer to just be very negative about a lot of things. And so sometimes I look at the comments, I be like, did they actually like watch what was really going on and actually really analyze why the judges went the way they went? Now, of course, for myself, I don't always agree with all the calls, but for the most part, generally speaking, going by the judges' criteria and what they've laid out for you, you can pretty much see what they're getting at, what they're talking about. And of course, with this kind of series, they're getting better and better and better at explaining what they're looking for to us as the audience. Because at the end of the day, this is a sport and this is entertainment. Everyone has the right to have their own opinion, and everybody's opinion, whether it's good or bad, is great for the sport in general, because it really shows how passionate everyone is about the sport and the runs that are done. Because these guys are amazing. They do an amazing job driving, and this is what it's all about, just having fun. So the first controversial battle from a comment that I seen is going to be Chris Forsberg versus Dan Berquette. So we're just going to watch it real quick and see what they got into.
To that power steering. So as I stopped and straightened it up and collected it, the power steering came back.
Forsberg missed the first zone just a little bit, a little off the second zone,
So,
right on the third zone.
He's a good dude, and yeah, just stoked to be moving on though.
And Dan's pretty much there the entire time, around like 2 to 3 cars back most of the run.
Thank you, Forsberg, back to his way.
All right, so check this out right here. So you see how Forsberg is a good distance off on his rumble strip. This was a big thing that the judges were talking about. It's for the lead driver to not go on his rumble strip, and the reason why is because you would end up pinching off the chase driver, and then they had to kind of like beeline towards the lead car in the first zone, and then that kind of just disrupts the entire run. So Forsberg does a good job right here and gives Dan the right of way to get right into his door. He is a slightly shallow as far as the angle, and I can tell that his car is pretty gripped up in the rear because his car is spinning the tires, but it's a little late to like really like smoke him up, which means that he has a good bit of grip in the car. And Dan is just doing a good job trying to keep up with him. He kind of gets gapped a little bit, as you can see, by like 2 to 3 cars, and now he's starting to reel it in. Forsberg hits the wall right there, a little tap. Good right there in the touch and go, and good on the last inner clip from both of them. Other than Dan, like kind of like knocking it over. See how Dan does out in the lead.
And that's for gold. So I hope that's the plan towards the end of the year.
And we'll see him do battle against Dylan Hughes in top 16.
Nice little tap right there. Forsberg is with him. He's slightly off of that out of zone 3. But Forsberg is right with him. All right, so at first glance, you would think that Dan would have got the win, which in my opinion, I can agree with anybody that would go with Dan winning this battle. And obviously, if you've seen this, you know Forsberg won the battle, but we're going to explain most likely why the judges would have said that.
I'd love to see us on that first run. Take a look.
So you pay attention right here. You see how Forsberg is forced to go on the rumble strip. That's because Dan Berquette's line was on the rumble strip, which pinched off Forsberg a little bit, causing him to go inside and kind of get gapped in this first section. Versus when Forsberg was leading and Dan's following him, he gave Dan the right of way and enough room to get on his door on his first corner, but Dan wasn't really there until out of zone 3.
Yeah,
but Dan does great in the zone, gives a little tap. Forsberg is adjusting, adapting, and getting right up to him. Dan really good in that zone. And then he's going to be extremely good on his touch and go. And both of them go right through this inner clip right here. And I believe since Dan Berquette kind of pinched out Forsberg on the first corner when Forsberg was chasing, I think the judges weighed that pretty heavily on him. And as well, Forsberg did do a great job chasing Dan, and Dan did give him a great lead to chase. to chase him. So I believe those are the key points on why they gave Forsberg the win. See the difference? He beelines into that rumble strip for Dan, and Forsberg gives him the room, and then Dan just kind of like, he wasn't on him in the beginning. That's kind of why he got gapped throughout the run, why he couldn't keep up with Forsberg until like the very end. And Forsberg just overall had a more consistent run. Not that I'm not saying that Dan's run wasn't that great. It was amazing, but Chris Forsberg did a little bit of a better job in all areas and adapting to Dan's style. All right, so another very controversial battle that I saw in the comments, and this is probably like the hugest one or the biggest one other than Shanahan versus Tuerck, and this is Ken Gushi versus Nick Novak.
Just Ken Gushi going against Nick Novak in that McKinney Tire BMW.
That's this from both of them. Nick Novak right there.
Stick it to the door, Ken Gushi. You hear that?
And Gushi, he's close to that zone, but slightly off.
Applying the pressure.
And Gushi is slightly off of that touch and go, but overall, both of them had an amazing run. And from that angle, or from those angles right there, Nick Novak had an amazing chase. So now we're going to see the replay from the overhead and see how they both did. So right here, Gushi is giving Nick Novak the best chance to get on his door. You see how far away they are from the rumble strip? That's allowing Nick Novak to get right on his door, right in the pocket, right at the beginning of the run, which is what you want to see. So then Gushi and Nick Novak do an amazing job right there. He angles up a little bit to make it through that zone, right on the wall. And Nick Novak, he kind of backs off a little bit in preparation for the transition back to outer zone 2.
Nick does an amazing job of.
So he kind of, it's not very flowy looking, but he does do the timing very well so that he can get right back in that pocket going into outer zone 3.
Mirroring throughout this run as well.
See, there he goes right there.
Pull a little bit of angle to get back up, but then mirrors it
right
to the
on
rest
him,
of the section.
give him a little tap.
A bit of a door tap there.
It's insane how they can do that stuff.
Maybe a bit more of a straight line approach to the touch.
But then pretty good on the inner clip, other than him tapping just a little bit.
Very stable.
See, Gushi giving him a great lead so he can do an amazing chase.
Making these cars really flowy. They've listened to the
And now that you see that, we're going to go straight to
and that's what we're seeing.
Gushi's chase.
These cars.
Man, let's go. Here we go. Nick Novak, Kenshiro Gushi, the OG, going against Nick Novak. And look at Novak. Woo! Nick Novak is absolutely on a heater. Really good lead run. Ken Gushi, that ready.
So, if you guys haven't watched this, the controversy is that Nick Novak got robbed. Everybody's saying Nick Novak got robbed, but if you actually pay attention, Gushi overall his lead did a better job of allowing Nick Novak to have a great chase. Because if you notice, if I can go back, or we'll see it in the replay real quick. All right, so pay attention to this. See, Nick Novak beelines, and it's probably because he didn't extend his drift out far enough, but he beelines for the rumble strip by accident. I'm assuming by accident, but that puts Gushi on an even tighter line, which doesn't give him the best opportunity to get right on his door, right in the pocket, right into outer zone 1. And then as we go through here, you see he's kind of on a tighter line, which kind of sets him up improperly to follow Nick Novak's trajectory into outer zone 1. And then Nick Novak doesn't fully feel this. I mean, he's really good on it, but he's not as good as Gushi did in his lead filling this zone. Which then kind of puts him a little off on this zone, which you can't tell from this view, but you can see it in the original view. And then Gushi is just kind of just with him about a car to 2 cars away, pretty much from the start to finish, based on being pinched off at the beginning of the run. And again, the judges are judging that starting area of the run heavily on the lead car, because in any run, no matter if it's FD or grassroots or whatever you want to give, the lead car needs to give the chase driver the best opportunity to be right there, because at the end of the day, you got to put on the show. It's about y'all putting on the show, and of course you want to come out on top, but you must give everybody the best possible chance to perform. And that's something that they've been really weighing heavy on, and it seems that a lot of people don't really actually pay attention to that. They just think, oh, just because the person has the proximity in certain areas, that just means that they win. That's not how that works. There's a lot of tiny details that you got to pay attention to really determine who wins a battle. So we got Ryan Tuerck versus Jack Shanahan, which this one was a huge controversy in the comments as well, and understandably so, because these guys, they were on it and they were throwing down.
Formula Drift Pro competition.
We'll get right into it.
No newcomer is 100%, but he's going against Tuerck, which is definitely on it. Here we go. That hot half of that squat down, gets all the way out there. Outside zone 1, boom, outside zone 2. Shanahan shaking out third as the Irish driver, the Formula Jet Pro rookie for this season, but no rookie to drifting. Boom, pops around that last inside clip. Well done.
That was a fantastic run by both of them.
Welcome to Formula.
So he starts out really wide,
Something that is just great.
and he comes, he's not on it, but he's like right beside the rumble strip, which does put Shanahan on a tight line.
Into them. So why?
But he's able to back it up, and he's pretty much right on his door, which is the right position that you want to be on somebody's car to be able to fill the zone without going too far over. Nice transition. Now he's about to reel him back in. He's a little shallow right there, but getting back up to him.
And it's this transition right here where Jack times it so well.
Then
and
finish
doesn't
off real
overshoot it,
strong.
doesn't get into the side of Ryan Tuerck, and it's such a great way to end that run. For
That was
Jack
a really good
Shanahan.
run overall.
Really
Like I
holds
said,
his time there.
Tuerck got really close to the rumble strip. He wasn't on it, but he got close to it, which did put Shanahan on a tighter line, but it didn't affect him too much. And he's able to stay with him the entire run and be very smooth and in the pocket pretty much for the entirety of the run.
Through that touch and go and into that inside.
Some setup. Here we go. Shanahan, Jack, not Connor. Welcome to FD. Look at that.
Pretty nice right there.
Tuerck dials it back. He goes to the
Jack
middle.
gave
Shanahan gets on the outside zone 3. Taps that wall.
tapped the wall right there.
Transitions
But
into
Jack
that
did
last
give
inside clip. And
Tuerck a
Shanahan
lot more
has a
room
foul.
on initiation to get right into the pocket. And Tuerck kind of got into the game a little late. But then Shanahan messed around and tapped the wall.
Fun fact.
Now, I can definitely understand people saying that they believe that Shanahan won this battle, especially given the criteria that I said before, where they're judging the rumble strip area, where he gave Tuerck a lot more room on the rumble strip. But the issue with that is that Shanahan then messed around and had tapped the wall really hard, which, you know, a wall tap isn't a bad thing, but if it really like kind of disrupts your car, of course you're going to get deducted a little bit because they want that precision, not just you ping-ponging off of the wall. And I'm not saying that he's like a bad driver or nothing like that. Because of that, it happens, but of course it's still an error. So you got to take that into consideration when judging the run. Versus in Tuerck's lead, he didn't hit any wall, really.
You can see the aggression at the
So you see this,
right
giving
away.
Tuerck
Now
a lot of
this is
room. Tuerck is just really far back.
the hopping right
And he's kind of just reeling in, a lot shallower angle right there. And he's on and Shanahan is on a lot of angle.
there as he gets on the throttle, comes
Coming
off
in
the e-brake,
really smooth on there.
holds
He
that
wasn't as close to the wall as Tuerck was, just slightly off of it, just slightly. Like we talking about like barely.
first
And he's really good right there.
Tuerck
And
now
then he
has
kind
to
of
dive in
goes,
out to the second,
you
but
see
look
right
at
there, his car kind of like backed up into the third outer zone, thus causing him to tap the wall. And, you know, Tuerck is just pretty much right there reeling him
Jack is
in.
able to hold the line,
He backs
keep
off a
it
little bit,
consistent, has that wall
and then they
tap,
go
which
into
is
this
50.
last inner clip really well.
Ryan Tuerck,
Just a little tap by
a
Tuerck on the
little
inner
bit
clip,
safer than what
and
I'd
they finish
want
it
him to
off.
be on that run.
So,
I
for me
get it,
personally,
though. I mean, you don't, there's
given
not
the
a lot
fact
of
that
notes from Jack Shanahan when it
Shanahan
comes
had
to
tapped the
an
wall
average
really
drive to
hard,
the car, so you
and
gotta play it a little bit safe, but
the fact that
go
Tuerck
back and watch
was
the old
really close to the
Shanahan
rumble
run.
strip,
This
not
is
on it, like I said, he wasn't on it,
quintessential
but he was really
Jack.
close.
He is aggressive. He
It didn't, it kind of put Shanahan on a tighter line, like I said earlier. So, in my opinion, I would say one more time, I would want them to run it again and showcase,
throw that car into the
you
wall.
know,
He
a
has
better
zero
display of
mechanical
skill.
sympathy. He
Not
is
that this was
known
bad,
as
but
an
they can do even
aggressive
better. We all know
driver.
this.
We see that.
In competition,
these
Ryan
boys
Tuerck
did it.
out front, that Rain-X Toyota GR Corolla.
Tuerck seems to be a little tight on the rumble strip still. Slightly off of the second zone. Shanahan on a tight line to keep up. Both of them really good through this section. And very, very precise on that inner clip. So let's see what the overhead looks like. Let's see how Tuerck handles that rumble strip.
They need to do. They didn't get in their head about it. They just went and drove.
All right, so he went on the rumble strip right there. But Shanahan was further back on his car enough to not be fazed by it. But still, he was a little on the rumble strip. So I'm not sure how to judge that for this one. And he's really good on this zone, a lot of angle. Shanahan a little shallower, trying to regain that proximity.
Very aggressive off that initiation. Has to cut the first
And he
outside.
kind of gets gapped through that mid transition because you can see they made a little correction with his steering, trying to get the car to transition, and his transition timing was just half a second, a little too late in Tuerck, which allowed Tuerck to just zoom off from him from outer zone 2 to outer zone 3.
Inside zone to get back in because of how
And he's
tight
reeling
he was
him in.
that section. But
Tuerck
then
very
does a
smooth through
fairly
outer zone
good job
3.
here in the chase.
Both
We'd
of
like a
them
little bit closer.
pretty much
At the
perfect
top
on that
of
zone and
that
on the inner
European
clip.
transition
Very
shows
precise
his
right
face
there.
again. at the touch and go. Tuerck
So
out
let's
front,
see how they do when they
pretty much a direct
come back
run
around.
Inside, Jack out front. Jack in that 59 BMW.
You good right
Here
there?
comes Ryan Tuerck in the chase position, goes out.
Slightly off of that zone, just very slightly. Really good on out of zone 2.
Really close to that second outside zone, goes into 3.
Slightly off of out of zone 3.
Good proximity, doesn't tuck into the pocket.
And then really
As we were
smooth
talking
into
about
the touch and go,
earlier,
and
the
both of them
4-on-1 on the roof.
coming through the end of the clip. Tuerck kind of takes it out a little bit.
Man.
So now let's see
Okay. How much
from the
time we got?
overhead.
That was right
So
there.
really
That
good right
shows
there. Again, Jack Shanahan, a decent distance away from the rubber strip, giving Tuerck a good opportunity to get right up on him.
I mean, that shows a lot of growth.
But he's a little shallower, and we're talking about like inches shallower than Tuerck on out of zone 1 and out of zone 2 and out of zone 3. So in my opinion, I think that's what gave Tuerck the edge. Or in my opinion, that's what would have given Tuerck the edge as far as this battle goes. But as we know, they went one more time, and I could definitely see that as well, given the judges' criteria with the rumble strip and how well these guys did in this battle.
See this again. I mean, there's a chance.
Not once, not twice. This is it. Our third battle between these gentlemen. We're
Looking
only
good.
at 32.
Shanahan right on him. This little kiss on the wall. Almost a kiss right there. And then slightly off of that zone by maybe a foot.
Now bringing into that final inside
Really great in
clip.
that
Shanahan
transition.
attacks.
Shanahan right on
There he
him.
goes. There he goes.
Just
Little
touch the
Shanahan
inner clip just a
sandwich.
little bit. See how
Almost another
how he did right here. See, he's doing a lot better right here as far as the rumble strip. Again, he's still pretty close to it, but he's not right on it. And Shanahan is right in tow. He slightly shallowed up really quick just to gain that proximity, and then kind of backs it up. Still slightly shallower, but Tuerck right on the wall, just a little kiss on it.
bit more aggressive.
Nice transition timing by Shanahan. He actually timed that very well so that he can get right back on the pocket.
A little bit more, and the nice thing is that
We're starting to reel him
Shanahan on
in.
this one did not
Tuerck just like maybe a foot off of this zone, but still talking feet, inches. Extremely well, extremely good. And Shanahan slightly less angle again, just to keep up that proximity.
on that initiation.
And
He
then
stayed in it,
fantastic
kind of
transition
took
right
notes,
here,
realized what Tuerck's gonna
timing
do,
wise by
adapted
Shanahan to
to
get
it,
right
and
on the
made
pocket
correction
into the inner clip
that we
on Tuerck.
needed to see him
Tomorrow.
So far what I've been seeing is that Tuerck is really good at fully filling the zones, like actually just taking a little graze at the wall. And Shanahan, he's filling zones very well, but he's not like grazing the wall, but it could be because he doesn't have a bump on it. Nice initiation by Bo. Comes up short just a little bit. Really good right there. And Tuerck had to make a correction. Really good on that zone too. And then Tuerck takes out that front clip and give Shanahan a little tap over the finish line.
Don't want to push too hard.
Yeah, and
So you can see his trajectory, pretty good coming around his rumble strip.
it's
See, right in front of it, giving Tuerck the best chance to chase.
crazy how they're just making
Tuerck's about like maybe half a car back. Shanahan great on this zone, just a little bit off of it, a little bit more off of it than Tuerck was. And then snappy transition back to this zone, which I really like because he filled this zone like pretty much perfectly. But a great snap, and since he snapped so fast, Tuerck had to kind of like make a little correction through the transition to be able to keep up with
a
it.
little bit better with every run.
But then he gets right into the pocket, starts to match him. Really good on this zone right here. And then Tuerck has slightly less angle than Shanahan, but Shanahan was sacrificing a little more angle than Tuerck was in his chase than Tuerck is right now.
Tuerck right there throughout the
And
chase.
then
I mean, has to
decent
back down to that
timing.
transition,
I think
does a
Shanahan's a
good
little bit
job.
better with his timing as far as the transitions goes and come across the inner clip.
But the leads are pretty much comparable.
Now for me, I'll give it maybe like a one more time because I would want to see it again because both of them did super well, and I'm not gonna lie, Shanahan is making it really hard to like really judge this. But I will say consistently, in my opinion, Tuerck has been filling the zones better than Shanahan. And that's just my opinion based on watching these three runs, especially filling out of zone 1. He's been doing an exceptional job with that. And he's been progressively getting better with giving Shanahan a little bit more room after the run up going into out of zone 1, coming off the rumble strip.
What's up, Dig?
So that battle's done, and the judges determined Tuerck to be the winner. So for this battle right here, Simon Olsen versus Ben Hopson, I didn't really see any comments about this video or this battle, I mean. But for me, I want to analyze it just to point out a couple things. And I thought it'd be kind of controversial, but the judges explained it pretty well. So we're gonna get right into it. And there's a mistake made by both drivers, and We'll get right into that in just a
So
second.
this was a different
The Super
car.
looks
Let's see how he
insane.
does. Back behind the wheel.
Ben has been on it.
He's going against Ben Hopson, who was looking
Yeah.
on it yesterday.
Olsen a little shallow right there, shallow to the next zone. So Ben Hopson has to do a beeline through the infield of the track to kind of keep up. And still put on the show. Both of them pretty good on the inner clip.
That won't impede his score too much.
Ben kind of gliding towards him. He kind of beelines a little bit with all that grip, kind of shoots forward over the rumble strip. But Ben is in a good position, and keep this in mind: putting your car in a good position behind the lead driver so that you can adapt to any mistakes or even just them driving really well, so you can adapt to what they're doing. So Ben is in a great position to allow himself to stay with him, even though Olsen is somewhat pinching him off by going on the rumble strip. So going to that zone, he's a little shallow in there, but Ben right in tow, right on him. He kind of lets him transition, which allows him to get gapped a little bit because he was getting a little greedy with the angle and the proximity right there. But he keeps it up. He gets beeline through the course, and that's mainly because Olsen kind of shallowed up on outer zone 2, which allowed him to speed off from Ben Hopson, and he misses outer zone 3. But Ben stays with him, continues to put on the show. Ben Hopson has like my favorite initiation at Long Beach. And boosts the wall right there, throws off Olsen. But he keeps it moving. Olsen tries to get back in the fight. But unfortunately, he straightens up and kind of ends his run. And the judges, at first glance, you would think, since the judges are weighing the lead run so heavily, why would they go for Ben Hopson in this run when he clearly disrupted and threw off Olsen and caused Olsen to basically mess up his run? And the reason was because although Ben Hopson had that mistake, Olsen could have still adapted, and he could have continued to run, later on during the course, but he ended up losing momentum and just completely straightened out. If he wouldn't have straightened out towards the end of the course, he would have pretty much got the win, basically, is what they were saying. But there's something I noticed that I want you guys to see that contributed to why Olsen couldn't adapt to Ben Hopson's mistake in outer zone 1. So let's pay attention right here. Hopson with amazing initiation, and as you can see right here, right out the bat, right before the run is pretty much even starting, Olsen is having a little hiccup where his car is kind of straightening out. And what does that do? It puts him on an extremely tight line. Hopson, he's a little bit on the rumble strip, kind of about the same amount that Olsen left him in his lead run, but he's doing really good right there. And here's the issue right here: Olsen pretty much just beelines over the rumble strip, putting him on an extremely shallow line. And as Hopson comes right here and boops the wall, he's in the wrong position because he's kind of beelining towards Hopson already, trying to gain that proximity, and then this happens. So then, of course, he gets thrown off. He's like, oh, snap, this man hit the wall. What am I going to do? But he hits the wall, and he kind of he's composed, but now he transitioned too early because his car was too far forward and had less angle than Hopson's, thus causing him to transition too early and just overall pretty much throw his run away. So as you see, he's extremely shallow, and then he kind of, this camera angle doesn't show it well, but since he was so shallow, he's picking up so much speed, he was going to possibly hit the wall right here out of zone 3. So therefore, he kind of like over rotates the car, what looks like to be on purpose to me, to kind of save his car and keep himself from hitting Hopson coming through the zone. And then that kind of just causes him to just straighten out and just lose the battle altogether. Now, the last controversial battle that I saw in the comments, there wasn't that many comments for it, but it was still controversy in the comment, and that is Frederick Aasbo versus James Deane, which they ended up going one more time after the first battle. So we're gonna see how they did.
Going against Frederick Aasbo. Are you ready to send it?
And as you already know, James, he's pretty much on point the entire event. Same for Frederick Aasbo, but to me, like, with just sheer style and precision, James had everybody beat, in my opinion. Look at him. All the angle, just a little kiss on the wall. All the angle, slight kiss on the wall. Right on the wall. And like, what can you say? The dude is just on point. He was slightly off on the inner clip, just a tiny bit.
like James
but
Deane,
extremely good
allowing
by
Frederick
both
Osborne to
drivers,
chase.
Aasbo and
There, they
James
played the
Deane.
whole seat, but you're only going to use the edge. Hopson, the camp, they're
Since
watching
we
on
know
the
that
RTR teammate.
James is pretty much on point, we're going to
Jr. up
look
here.
at Frederick's
He's watching on no headset on.
chase.
He's enjoying the show. Jacob.
What we are looking at are the two
There we
most
go.
dominating drivers
All right, so James giving Frederick a good chance to chase.
in drifting history.
Aasbo on a slightly less angle. I would like for him to, have a little bit more angle, but he's slightly shallower. But with James, he adds the angle so that he can follow James into the zone properly.
And trying to nudge each other.
And he times his transition perfectly. And what I really like, if you ever pay attention to how the drivers take this long transition, they all kind of walk the steering wheel. And when you walk the steering wheel, you can kind of, what I mean by that, you can you literally just, instead of letting it just counter steer by itself, you literally walk the steering wheel with your hands. And what that will allow you to do is allow you to kind of control the car's rotation, how fast it wants to rotate through the transition. And you can kind of stall the car's weight and then walk it, which would kind of cause that snap. Or you can just walk it real nicely and smoothly, and now get the car to have that nice flowy, fluid transition out to the next zone. And as you can see, that's what both of them do. Aasbo does it with great timing, and he gets right back into the pocket. Right on Deane, slightly less angle, he actually has a lot less angle right here. Going into the zone. I don't think he expected James to angle up so much coming into this zone right here. But he's with him. Great transition timing, and both of them great right there. James, again, a little too far away from the inner clip, but extremely great battle overall. James chase. James with all the angle in the chase. Looking really good. But he's a little shallower than James was on zone 2. Really good on that zone, but still shallower than James. James right on him. And Aasbo a little bit better on the inner clip. Now, so when I was watching this originally, I felt like James got the win, but they went one more time. So we're going to look back at it, and we're going to try to see why they would have went one more time with it.
I mean, claws, pretty good.
All right, so great line by both of them. And as you can see, they're nearly parallel. James has just literally maybe 3 degrees less angle than Aasbo, but parallel pretty much. Right on him. He kind of goes really inside, and now he's kind of shallow, kind of like Frederick had did in his chase through this section. So right about this zone right here, if you actually go back to when Aasbo was chasing, Aasbo actually made a correction and actually added angle just as at the same time that James adds angle into this zone to be able to mimic him coming through out of zone 1. Whereas right here, James does not mimic that angle to its entirety, and kind of just stays at his same angle to stay with Frederick, and Frederick does a great job through this zone. And they both walk the steering wheel through here, and they're doing really good right here. Like I said, Aasbo maybe a foot off in comparison to James in this zone, and James kind of inside right here, keeping up with Aasbo. Then he brings it back with a little bit of handbrake, but now he's a little inside, but he's matching the angle pretty well.
You have to assume the zones.
And then now he's doing the same thing that Aasbo did. He has the proximity, but now he's cutting out the angle just slightly, just like Aasbo did.
Perfect between these drivers.
But overall, in my opinion, he's had more angle in the chase overall.
It's what happens.
A nice transition. He kind of cuts inside really early, trying to get back on Aasbo's door.
That's making all the difference.
And then he really comes tight on that clip without hitting it and just gets right back on Aasbo.
Able to open the door, how are they able to transition?
So after kind of analyzing that, I could definitely see why they went one more time. Like I said, for me personally, I would still lean towards James. I just saw something else. But if you notice right here, initiation. So James angles up a lot. Frederick, he has good angle right here doing his initiation, giving James enough room, pretty much the same amount of room that James gave him when Aasbo was chasing. But the issue right here is that James is a little too far forward in positioning to Aasbo's car, which is going to bring his trajectory across the rumble strip, thus causing him to go on the inside and having to sacrifice a little bit of angle to mimic, see that right there? To mimic Aasbo. So he kind of jumps over the rumble strip. And you can't blame Aasbo for this because Aasbo actually gave James enough room to be right on his door. James was just a little too far forward, thus causing him to have to go over the rumble strip instead of staying in the pocket on his door. Now, granted, the Mustang is a lot bigger than every other car in the grid, so you do have to take into consideration that your car might have to be, that the Mustang might have to be a little further up on a car that's smaller than it, so that when you're going through a zone at the same time, you're not putting the rear of the Mustang into the wall, since the car is longer than, say, a Supra. So I do understand that aspect of it as well, given the fact that I drive a Mustang as well. But again, I agree with the one more time after analyzing the video. James with a phenomenal initiation yet again. Frederick with him. I swear, James just kills it with the angle and the style. And then that's the issue right there that kind of cost James the entire win. James pretty much, he was flying through the course and he had to angle up in preparation to getting into the wall, because you can tell he knew he was going to the wall, so he angled up just enough to save the car and itself and still make it look good and look clean. But that pretty much is right at the gate. That's what kind of cost him the win, because just like James, Frederick is also on point. So now we're going to switch roles. There it goes, a little shimmy from James in the chase, but he's on Frederick because he knows he has that mistake. But since he's pushing, you see he's making a couple more mistakes behind him trying to push. Gives him a little tap, and then both of them through the inner clip, looking real solid, real clean. And as you already know, Frederick got the win and won this competition. James got second, and Adam LZ got third. James changed from their first battle as far as his chase goes. Look at his positioning. He's not too far forward on Aasbo's car. In the beginning of the original battle in the chase, James was his trajectory was kind of pointed at Aasbo's front fender, versus now his trajectory as far as his tire is pointed at the rear of his fender and like the middle of his door. And as you can see he's kind of forward on him right there, but overall his positioning is way better than it was in the first battle. So therefore he's able to stay on his door and stay in the pocket without having to sacrifice much angle to mimic Aasbo. And look at him, just on him. Literally parallel. If you look at that, they're parallel. He sacrificed angle as a mistake right there, probably because Aasbo's increasing his angle and he's kind of like a little too close, I'm guessing, for comfort. And now he's like super shallow, as you can see, like super shallow. And then he regains it like super fast in that zone to mimic Aasbo. They're both about to transition. And then he has a little shimmy right there. And then he kind of gets gapped by Aasbo going through out of zone 2. Catches up to him, but he also had to sacrifice a little bit of angle to catch back up to Aasbo. Starts to mimic him, backs off a little bit, and then now really smooth into the inner clip. Aasbo off of the inner clip by a good margin. But overall, amazing run by both, and congrats to them boys on the performance. Okay, so real quick, we're going to look at Chris Forsberg versus Adam LZ. We're not going to watch the whole thing. I just want you guys to see the initiation. I want you to see the difference in initiation from the way that Adam initiates with Forsberg versus how he initiates with James.
That he knows he deserves, and he's out there, so he's not going to leave anything to chance here. I'm expecting a big, nasty initiation here, and here we go. Chris Forsberg.
We're going to look back at it one more time. So basically, as you can see, Adam and a lot of other drivers, they will mimic the way that the lead driver initiates if they're comfortable with that driver's driving style. And that comes with knowing who you're going up against. This is something that's super important. You need to actually be analyzing who you're battling and what their style is, so that you know what to expect from them and what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are and what their consistency is. So as you see, he mimics Forsberg's initiation with a faint entry, but he kind of kept his distance a little bit, which shows you that he knows Forsberg's style and he's seen how he drives, but it's not somebody that he's commonly driven with all the time. So therefore, he kept it pretty clean in the initiation. So now we're going to look at Adam LZ's initiation with James Deane. And remember, Adam has driven with James at LZ World Tour. He's been an RTR driver Just like James, the RTR driver, he's driven with him a ton. So therefore, he knows how James drives. And he also knows how the RTRs perform because he has driven them. So let's see how he initiates behind James.
Grill is on. Here we go. James Machine Deane, 4-time first ever.
See that? He's right with him. Complete mimic. So he, just like he mimicked Forsberg's initiation with the feint, he mimics James, but he's a lot closer. He's a lot more aggressive about it. And that's because he's comfortable with James' driving style because he knows James' style. And he's driven with him a ton. That's why I say it's so important to know who you're up against and really knowing their style and what their habits are so that you yourself have the best preparation, you know, almost like Batman, having the best preparation against your opponent to be able to not only mimic them, but be able to keep up and give them the best battle and run for their money in the battle. So let's watch that again. And this is pretty much I know it's pretty much one of the only drivers other than James I've seen really mimic the lead driver's initiation. It's just fantastic run. But I'm gonna mute this. Other than that, that's gonna do it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. That's just my little analysis on the video. You know, I'm not a pro driver or anything like that, but I do aspire to be one at some point, and maybe even one day, like I said, drive with these guys with my own car. And like I said before, I really enjoy watching FD. I really enjoy analyzing the videos and learning from these guys. And I do like looking at the comments sometimes. And like I said, most of them are negative, and I like to see the comments and see what people thought about a certain run, and then I go check out the run that's controversial. And 9 times out of 10, I can definitely agree with what the judges are saying and see where they're coming from if you actually pay attention to what their criteria is and what they're talking about. That's kind of like the biggest thing that I've noticed. Yeah, there have been questionable calls here and there and stuff like that in FD and in the judge sport in general. But at the end of the day, a lot of people don't really pay attention to what they're actually asking of the drivers. They don't pay attention to that stuff. Plus, we're not in the drivers' meeting, so we don't know everything that they told the drivers. So therefore, the commentators do their best job to explain to us what the judges are looking for, why they're saying what they're saying, and why they're making the calls that they're making. So at the end of the day, let's just enjoy the show. That's really all it's about, enjoying the show. I'm an entertainer as far as doing YouTube, and I'm a drifter as well, so I'm an entertainer for you guys, and these guys are entertainers for you. So just sit back, enjoy the show, have some fun. There's nothing wrong with being compassionate about it, but just don't be negative. Life isn't about being negative. Let's all have fun, enjoy our lives while we can. I'll see you guys in the next one.